After waking up, I immediately stopped my mother-in-law from aborting the bastard in her belly, persuading her to secretly give birth and even raise the child under my name. 3 years later, my husband returned alive. He brought back a woman and her son, and immediately said he wanted to demote me to a concubine and kick my child out of the Marquis's mansion. My mother-in-law jumped out and slapped him across the face. "You bring back a slut and want to bully Anning? No way." My husband wanted the bastard to become the legitimate heir, and my mother-in-law jumped out and slapped him again. "As long as I'm alive, none of you will take Howard's position." Later, when my husband fell gravely ill, I said to my mother-in-law, "Old madam, the heir is done for. You need to think about your other son. None of you will take away Howard's position." Later, when my husband was gravely ill, I said to the matriarch, "Old madam, the heir is already ruined. You must consider your other son." My mother-in-law's eyes turned sinister. "In that case, we'll send him on his way." I had always known about my mother-in-law's affair. At first, I was panicked, thinking how could a woman do such a thing. Later, I thought my mother-in-law was a widow, and I was a widow too. Birds of a feather. Besides, my mother-in-law was domineering. I didn't dare provoke her. Even if I exposed this matter, I wouldn't gain anything from it. I simply pretended not to know. Unexpectedly, the maid Chioju secretly slipped me a prescription and leaned close to my ear, whispering, "Madam, this is the medicine the old madam had someone fetch." I secretly showed it to a doctor. "It's an abortifacient prescription." My hand holding the prescription trembled. "Really?" Chioju nodded vigorously. I looked at the names of the herbs on the paper, my heart sinking slightly. I waved my hand and said, "You may leave now." Left alone in the room, I sat by the table, picked up my tea, and took a sip to calm myself. During the morning greeting, I noticed that my mother-in-law's belly was slightly swollen, and she seemed listless. So I kindly asked, "Mother, are you feeling unwell? Why not call a doctor to take a look?" Rubbing her temples, my mother-in-law said, "I am a bit tired. Having a look wouldn't hurt." The doctor arrived quickly. As soon as he took her pulse, his expression dramatically changed. He hastily asked my mother-in-law to clear everyone out. I tactfully withdrew from the room. Yet I already had some vague suspicions. After returning to my own courtyard, I had Chioju find a way to copy down my mother-in-law's prescription. Sure enough, I had guessed correctly. I clutched the slip of paper, my heart a tangled mess. On the day I married into this family, my husband went off to war and never returned. In the year I've been a widow, my mother-in-law is overbearing and domineering, but I've been careful and managed to get along barely. But now she's pregnant, carrying some other man's child. What should I do? I pondered over and over, and before I knew it, I dozed off at the table, falling into a long, vivid dream. In the dream, 3 years had passed, and my husband Han Jingyong, whom I thought died in battle, came back alive. Not only did he come back, but behind him trailed a delicate and pitiful woman, holding a 3-year-old boy by the hand. He looked at me with icy eyes and said that back then, he was wounded and lost his memory, saved by this woman named Lin Ro. They had married in the mountains and had a child. He said, "In this life, I only acknowledge Lin Ro as my wife. There's no affection between you and me. We parted on our wedding night. You are not my wife." He wanted me to voluntarily leave the household to make room for his beloved woman and son. Naturally, I refused, begging my mother-in-law to take my side. At first, the old woman in the dream was shocked too, but after looking at the little boy, she hesitated only briefly before nodding in agreement. I ran back to my parents' home in tears, begging for help, but my parents had died young. Before leaving, they had given me half of the family fortune as a dowry and entrusted the other half to my uncle, asking him to look after me. Yet my cousins mocked me, and my uncle and aunt stood by coldly. They even said sarcastically, "Don't tell us you were divorced because you did something shameful against the Marquis's household. Besides, you're married off. What does it have to do with us?" Later, they found some excuse to target me. I was demoted from a legal wife to a lowly concubine, locked in a rundown courtyard, tortured endlessly. Finally, on a freezing night, Lin Ro and Han Jingyong forced me to drink a cup of poison wine. I screamed as I jolted awake, drenched in cold sweat, my heart pounding wildly. The despair in the dream felt so real it was as if I had truly died once. I clutched my chest, gasping for breath. Slowly calming down, I thought, no, this absolutely cannot happen. If the dream is true, if that deadbeat husband really isn't dead and is coming back with another woman and her bastard child, if that happens, I'll end up in a fate worse than my dream. I have to do something. My eyes swept over the prescription on the table, and a sudden thought flashed through my mind. I immediately stood up. Pushing open the door, I rushed toward Grandma's courtyard. As soon as I burst into the room, I saw Grandma reclining sideways on the soft couch, holding a bowl of black medicine in her hand, about to bring it to her lips. Wait! Don't drink it! In desperation, I charged forward and knocked the bowl out of her hand. With a crash, the bowl shattered, and the dark medicinal liquid splattered all over the floor. Song Anning. Grandma was first stunned, then flew into a rage, glaring at me fiercely. Are you rebelling? What do you think you're doing? I struggled to calm my racing heart, glanced at the maids and servants attending in the room, and tried to steady my voice. All of you get out. I have urgent matters to discuss with Mother. The servants exchanged hesitant glances, not daring to move. Grandma frowned tightly. Song Anning, have you lost your mind? I said, Mother, let them leave. What I am about to say concerns both your future and the future of the Marquis estate. Only you can hear it. Grandma stared at me for a long moment. Finally, she waved her hand at her confidant, old Madame Jo, who led the others out and closed the door tightly. The room fell silent instantly. Speak. The mother-in-law raised an eyebrow. If you can't give me a good reason today, I won't go easy on you for disrespecting your elders. I walked up to her couch and lowered my voice. Mother, you're pregnant, aren't you? You should keep this child. My mother-in-law jolted, as if struck by lightning. Her hand instinctively covered her stomach. What nonsense are you talking? Mother, don't try to hide it from me. I know everything. I pulled the prescription from my sleeve and handed it to her. You're pregnant. She took it, her face turning from pale to green. Mother, I softened my voice. Your only son is gone. The Marquis and its estate have many branch families eyeing them, just waiting to gobble up our inheritance. But heaven has pitted us and given us this child. Are you really willing to give it up? A slight hesitation flickered across her face. I continued, you can give birth quietly and tell the world that I, as your daughter-in-law, am the one who has no child to rely on. In my anxiety, I suggested adopting a child under your name. First, you would have a biological child by your side, a source of support and hope. Second, the Marquisite's title could be preserved, not falling into outsiders' hands. The family legacy would remain intact. Third, with a child by my side, I could also establish a foothold. My mother-in-law stared at me blankly, gently stroking her belly. Her gaze was complicated. I could tell she truly couldn't bear to abort the child. Why are you helping me? She stared at me intently. You're not going to report me, are you? I looked at her with utmost sincerity. Mother, you are my mother-in-law. We are in the same boat. You have treated me well this past year, and I remember that. Father's been gone so long. You have worked hard for this family for years, doing more than enough. Besides, if we let those wolfish collateral branches seize the title, would there be any way for us to survive in this Marquis? Helping you is helping myself. With every word I spoke, the wariness on my mother-in-law's face lessened, gradually replaced by a look of satisfaction. She reached out and patted the back of my hand. Good child, I underestimated you before. You are thoughtful. I replied respectfully, Mother, everything is for the sake of the Marquis estate. The mother-in-law nodded approvingly and decided to keep this child. Later, I persuaded her again. As her pregnancy progressed, there were too many eyes in the mansion, making it easy for the secret to be exposed. It would be better to rest and nurture the baby at a quiet manner outside the city. The mother-in-law, feeling guilty herself, agreed without hesitation. Not long after, the Marquis' estate spread the news that the old lady had gone to a temple outside the capital to pray for the deceased heir and was on a retreat with no fixed return date. With her departure, the keys and tally tokens of the household management naturally fell into the hands of me, the only young madam. Standing at the gate, watching the mother-in-law's carriage drive away, the smile on my face faded. I turned and walked inside, coldly ordering, Chiu Ju, gather all the servants. I want to address them. Yes, madam. With the mother-in-law's departure, childbirth and postpartum confinement would take at least half a year. This half year was my golden time. I immediately began to take control of the Marquis' estate. Previously, with the mother-in-law present, I couldn't command those old servants. Now that she's gone, I am in charge of the estate. Those who should be won over, I win over. I settled accounts, sold off what needed to be sold, and quietly replaced key positions with my own people. The ledgers for the fields and shops I reviewed over and over again myself. Under the guise of reorganization, I secretly diverted a large sum of silver to a place only I knew. Even if I were forced to leave the household in the future, I would still have money to fall back on. Over these 6 months, I firmly grasped control of the Marquis' residence inside and out. Soon, news came from the manor that my mother-in-law had given birth to a chubby boy. After she finished her month of confinement, I quickly found an excuse to personally go to the manor to fetch her. Back home, I unified the story both inside and outside the household. I, who had no children, was deeply worried day and night. On the way to the temple, I happened upon an infant. Feeling a strong connection, I recorded him under my name to raise as my legitimate son. The child was named Hanyu. After all, my mother-in-law was getting on in years. This birth was difficult and greatly depleted her vitality. When she returned, her face was sallow, and she needed support to walk. The first thing she did upon returning to the residence was to demand back the power to manage the household. I had been making moves during this time. She knew a little about it, and given her temperament, if it weren't for having a child, she would have long since stormed back to the Marquis' residence. Now that she's back, naturally she didn't give me a good face. "Mother, here are the keys to the household." I respectfully and humbly handed over the power of managing the household. My mother-in-law's expression softened a bit, but her health was truly lacking. She was out of breath after just a few sentences. She got dizzy after looking at the accounts for a while. I was considerate and took the initiative to handle all the trivial matters, only letting her rest and recuperate. In the end, although the authority over the household nominally remained in my mother-in-law's hands, all the major and minor affairs of the Marquis' residence, income and expenses, personnel arrangements, were still firmly grasped in my hands. The child was also raised by me, and I devoted myself fully to him. Looking at that wrinkled little thing in the cradle, I was genuinely happy in my heart. Having him was like holding a huge leverage over my mother-in-law. She might put on the airs of a noble old lady in front of others, but in front of me, she had to soften by 3 points. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. Hanyu could run and jump, calling me mother in a childish voice. At first, my mother-in-law didn't trust me, but later, when she saw how much I doted on the child, and since she managed the Marquis' estate efficiently, she trusted me to run it. Taking advantage of the leverage I had over my mother-in-law, I asked her to help me go to my eldest brother-in-law's house to retrieve the other half of my dowry. That afternoon, I was sitting in the courtyard flipping through account books. The sunlight was warm and cozy when Chioju burst in like a gust of wind, gasping for breath as she said, Madam, he's back. The heir has returned." My hand tightened on the account book. I looked up and said, "Nonsense. The heir died on the battlefield, heroically giving his life. How could he come back?" Chioju caught her breath and continued, "It's true. He's already in the front hall. And it's not just the heir alone. He also brought back a woman and a boy about 2 or 3 years old. The heir says that back then he was wounded in battle and fell off a cliff. That woman saved him, and at the time he had amnesia and didn't remember he was already married. So he married that woman and had a child with her." The account book slipped from my hand and landed with a slap on the stone table. The warm sunlight shone down on me, but a chill ran through me. That dream was actually real. My husband wasn't dead. He had returned, bringing a mother and child with him. Next, he would demote me from wife to concubine. Let that wretched woman trample over me and torment me. My mother-in-law and everyone else in the Marquis' household turned a blind eye, allowing Lin Ro to become the legitimate wife, ignoring my plight. It was all true. I clenched my fists, took a deep breath, and sneered, "Fine, let's go meet the heir, along with that mother and child." Before leaving, I ordered a servant to inform my mother-in-law. Soon I arrived at the front hall and immediately saw the family of 3 standing in the room. My husband, Han Jingyang, still handsome and dashing, was smiling and nodding to a woman beside him. then reached out to pat a boy's head. They looked perfectly happy. I walked in, curtsied, and said, "Husband." Han Jingyang turned his head to see me, raised an eyebrow, and his face immediately darkened. "Making us wait this long," he said. "You sure put on airs." I was stunned. My husband, after being apart for so long, his first words were a reprimand. Just like in the dream, his intentions were hostile. I glanced at the woman beside him and asked, "And this is?" Han Jingyang took her hand and said, "This is Lin Ro, my lifesaver." Lin Ro? My heart skipped a beat. Even the name is exactly the same. Everything matches. That dream, it really was a prophetic dream. I recalled my miserable fate from it. I clenched my fist secretly and said with a smile, "So she is my husband's lifesaver." Lin Ro called out softly, "Sister." At that moment, the little boy beside her looked up and asked, "Dad, who is this woman? Why does she call you husband like Mom? I don't want other women calling you husband. You are my mom's only husband and my only dad." Han Jingyang patted the child's head. He coaxed, all right, whatever you say." Then he looked up at me, his tone distant. "Song Anning, don't call me husband anymore from now on. Address me as the young master." I clenched my fist tighter, but still wore a smile. "Young master, aren't you going to give me an explanation?"
Lin Ru tugged at Han Jingyang's sleeve.
Han Jingyang then spoke. "It's like this. I was injured on the battlefield back then, fell off a cliff, and was saved by Lin Ro. During that time, I lost my memory and developed feelings for Lin Ro. We also bowed and married. Now Roer is my wife, and Han Zheng is my son. Now our family of 3 has returned. Song Anning, anyway, there was no actual marital relationship between us, and no feelings to speak of. So give up the position of the legitimate wife." My mind buzzed. Exactly the same, just like the scene in my dream. I immediately interrupted him. "I don't agree. Han Jingyang, I am your wife, formally married with proper rights, carried in by a bridal sedan chair. Why should I give way?" Lin Ro's eyes reddened instantly. "Sister, I know you're unhappy, but you and Jingyang were never suited for each other. On your wedding night, Jingyang left. The one who's been with him these past few years is me. We also bowed and married. I am his wife." I remained unmoved. I too bowed and married Han Jingyang. In all matters, there is a precedence of first come, first served, isn't there? What if some other woman marries Han Jingyang in the future? Would you also voluntarily step down and obediently scram? Lin Ro was momentarily choked, then bit her lip and said, "Sister, this has nothing to do with who came first. Jingyang loves me. The one who is loved is the wife. The one who isn't can only be a concubine." I laughed again. "Lin Ro, where do you get such confidence? Do you think Han Jingyang will love you forever? In a few years, when you've aged and lost your looks, and he brings back a young, beautiful woman, will you become a concubine too?" "You." Lin Ro was left speechless. Unable to out-argue me, she tugged at Han Jingyang's arm. "Jingyang, you must stand up for me." Han Jingyang's face darkened. "Song Anning, don't be ungrateful. I can't be bothered to argue with you. From today on, Lin Ro is the wife, and you are the concubine." My heart sank. Unable to reason with me, Han Jingyang was resorting to coercion. Lin Ro spoke again. "Sister, I don't actually care about the title, and I don't want to compete with you. It's just that Jingyang and I already have a child." She pulled over Han Zheng and stroked his head, saying, "Zheng'er is Jingyang's child. If I become a concubine, then Zheng'er will be a bastard son. That's bad for him. If I am the wife, then Zheng'er will be the legitimate eldest son. Sister, you have no children. You should at least consider the heirs of the Marquis' estate." Han Jingyang nodded in agreement. "Exactly. Song Anning, don't be so selfish. For the child's sake, you should give up your position as the legitimate wife." I spoke slowly. "I don't agree. If I become a concubine, then my child would become a bastard son." Shock instantly appeared on their faces. "You have a child?" I nodded. Han Jingyang's eyes widened in fury. Pointing at my nose, he cursed, "Song Anning, I have never had marital relations with you. Where did this child come from? Did you cheat on me? How dare you?" Watching him in this righteous indignation, I found it both amusing and disgusting. He found a woman outside and had a child, then came back to force me to give up my position as the legitimate wife to make room for Lin Ro. But the moment he heard I had a child, he flew into a rage, as if even if he died, I should remain faithful to him. How could there be such a selfish and despicable person in this world? I turned to Chiu-ju and said, "Go bring the young master here. Go see the young master." Chiu-ju turned and left, quickly bringing over Han Yu, who had been playing nearby. The moment Han Jingyang saw the child, he trembled with rage. Pointing at the child, he said, "Where did this bastard come from? Song Anning, you treacherous woman, you actually betrayed me and gave birth to a bastard." Lin Ro quickly steadied his arm. "Jingyang, don't let this anger ruin your health. You've been away for years, so sister might have thought you were dead. Lonely in the boudoir. She might have gone to another man." Han Jingyang grew even angrier and roared, "Song Anning, get rid of this bastard." He rushed in front of Han Yu, grabbed his little arm, and furiously dragged him out. I quickly stepped forward to stop him. "What are you doing?" Han Jingyang shoved me hard. "Get lost. Today I'm going to kill this bastard." I went along with it, letting out a cry as I fell to the ground. Han Jingyang roughly pulled the child out, and Han Yu burst into loud wails. Just then, a furious roar came from outside the door. "Who dares touch my heir?" Mother-in-law had arrived. Han Yu cried loudly, calling out, "Grandmother?" For the past few years, Han Yu had called me mother and addressed my mother-in-law as grandmother. I stood up and said, "Mother, you're finally here." The heir said heir is a bastard and wanted to beat him to death. Chiu-ju added fuel to the fire. "Madam, the heir brought back a woman and a child, and he wants to demote your daughter-in-law to a concubine. He also said he wanted to kill the young master." Madam tried to protect the young master, but the heir pushed her down. My mother-in-law was furious and slapped Han Jingyang across the face. Outrageous.
Slap.
The sharp sound stunned everyone present. Han Jingyang was dazed, and after a long while, he said, "Mother, I am your son. It's been years since I last saw you. Why do you hit me the moment we meet?" My mother-in-law hugged the crying Han Yu and turned her head to say, "You came back, fine, but why bully heir? If you didn't bully him, I would naturally be happy. But you bullied heir. If I don't hit you, who else would I hit?" Han Jingyang angrily pointed at Han Yu and said, "Mother, how can you protect this bastard?" Hearing this, my mother-in-law slapped Han Jingyang again. "Who are you calling a bastard? Calling him a bastard over and over. Have your manners all gone to the dogs?" Han Jingyang was stunned again by this slap. Lin Ro nervously stepped forward and took Han Jingyang's arm. "Jingyang, are you all right?" Then she went up and took her mother-in-law's arm, comforting her. "Mother, don't let anger harm your health." The young lord was originally respectful and polite. These years spent wandering outside, he might have been corrupted by someone, which is why he is so rude now. The mother-in-law's gaze fell coldly on Lin Ro, in a cold voice. "Who are you?" Lin Ro hid behind Han Jingyang like a startled rabbit. Han Jingyang took her hand and comforted her with a word, then said to his mother, "Mother, this is Lin Ro." He repeated what he had just said to his mother, his words full of gratitude and love for Lin Ro. Then he pulled Han Zheng forward. "Mother, this is mine and Roer's child. Zheng, quickly call grandmother." At Lin Ro's signal, Han Zheng called out grandmother. Seeing Han Zheng, her mother-in-law's expression softened a little. "Come over here, let me take a look at you." Han Zheng walked over, pushed aside Han Yu, who was standing nearby, and said, "Move aside, you bastard. This is my grandmother." Han Yu was knocked to the ground and burst into loud crying. I quickly stepped forward to hold Han Yu and said angrily, "Han Zheng, how could you push heir? Such a young child, and already so domineering. How were you raised?"
Heating Miss Goldan Singh.
Lin Ro quickly said, "Sister, how can you scold a child? He's still so young." Han Jingyang also darkened his face. "Song Anning, was Zheng wrong? That one in your arms is a bastard. Zheng pushing him is only right." The matriarch couldn't take it anymore and slapped Han Jingyang across the face again, trembling with rage. "You unfilial son." She then lowered her head to Han Zheng. "So young and already using foul language and pushing people. Didn't your mother teach you properly?" Facing Han Zheng, her earlier kindness had now turned entirely into harsh words and stern looks. Han Zheng was startled, and Han Jingyang and Lin Ro were also stunned. I said, Children learn from adults. Clearly, he hasn't been taught well. The matriarch immediately walked over to the still stunned Lin Ro. She slapped her hard. You bitch. You've corrupted my son and taught my grandson badly. Get out. With a slap, 5 red finger marks appeared on Lin Ro's face.
Ah?
Lin Ro covered her face, tears instantly filling her eyes. Since Lin Ro was not the mother-in-law's biological daughter-in-law, and they were not related by blood, the mother-in-law struck ruthlessly. Han Jingyang felt distressed. He quickly supported Lin Ro. Mother, how can you bully Ro? The mother-in-law glared at them fiercely. Han Yu is a Ning's son. He is my grandson, not a bastard. Han Jingyang was shocked. Mother, how can you protect that child? Song Anning and I never consummated our marriage. This child's origin is unclear. How can he stay in the Marquis's mansion? I wiped the corner of my eyes with a handkerchief and said tearfully, Mother, the heir brought back a woman and a child. As soon as he entered, he started shouting and threatening, demanding that I give up my position as the rightful wife and become a concubine. And he blames me for having an affair and giving birth to a bastard. Mother, you must stand up for me. Han Jingyang pointed at my nose and cursed. Did I say anything wrong? I cried even more sorrowfully. My mother-in-law frowned and said, Jingyang, have you lost your mind? Why didn't you just ask? Han Yu is our adopted child. Lin Ro, who had been tense beside her, immediately relaxed upon hearing that the child was adopted. So that's how it is we misunderstood. Han Jingyang was also stunned. So he's adopted. Why didn't you say so earlier? I sobbed. When I first returned, you forced me to give up my position as the main wife and become a concubine. When you heard I had a child, you immediately assumed I had been unfaithful. You wanted to beat me and kill me. When did I ever have a chance to explain? My lord, you were once so wise and decisive. How have you become so unclear about right and wrong after being with Lin Ro? My mother-in-law was a fiercely protective and stubborn person. If I had directly attacked Han Jingyang, she would have been very displeased. But if she could pin all the blame on a stranger, she would find it much easier to accept. Exactly, my mother-in-law said, her gaze cutting toward Lin Ro like a knife, her dislike all too apparent. Jingyang used to be well-read, reasonable, clever, and wise. For him to act like this now, it must be because you've been leading him astray. You've not only led Jingyang astray, but you've also corrupted the child. You cannot stay. Someone. Zhou Mama walked in with her people, and Lin Ro's face turned pale. Heir, save me. Han Jingyang quickly shielded Lin Ro. Mother, Lin Ro is my wife. No one is allowed to touch her. The matriarch was now completely on my side, utterly disgusted with Lin Ro. Song Anning is your wife. What is she? Lin Ro fell to her knees with a thud and kowtowed, saying, old madam, I do not seek a title. Nor do I desire riches and honor. I only ask that the old madam treat Zheng'er a little better. Zheng'er cannot be without his mother. Han Jingyang also said, yes, mother. The reason I want Song Anning to be a concubine and Lin Ro as my wife is to give Zheng'er a legitimate status. Roer is innocent and kind. She doesn't want these titles at all. We are doing this all for the child. You cannot let your own grandson be a concubine son, I immediately said with tears. Mother, if I become a concubine, then Yuer will be a concubine's son. Moreover, you are demoting me from wife to concubine. Everyone would think I had committed some grave fault, and Yuer's future prospects would be ruined. The matriarch took a deep breath and slapped Lin Ro across the face. You vile woman, don't think I don't know what you're scheming. Your petty tricks are nothing in my eyes. My Yuer must never be a concubine's son, and his mother must never be a concubine. Lin Ro was stunned by the slap, her hair disheveled and her mouth slightly agape as she stared at the matriarch. She couldn't understand why she had failed despite giving birth. Han Jingyang also didn't understand. Having been struck repeatedly, he grew angry and shouted at the matriarch. Mother, how can you hit Roer again? Zheng'er is my own flesh and blood. Shouldn't he be the legitimate son? I said, husband, how can you yell at your own mother for the sake of an outsider? Do you know how heartbroken mother has been over you all these years? When you return, you don't ask about her health or inquire about the affairs of the Marquis's mansion, yet you shout at her as if she were your enemy. This is unfilial conduct. With every word I spoke, the old lady's anger grew.
Han Jingyang, Yuan filialson.
Mother, Lin Rose saw the situation was turning unfavorable. She quickly explained, Old madam, my husband was just anxious. He really wanted Jung'er to be the legitimate son. It's not difficult to want a legitimate son, the mother-in-law said coldly, staring at Lin Ro. Register the child under Anning's name, then your son will rightfully become the legitimate heir. Lin Ro was stunned. Han Jingyang was also speechless for a moment. I said softly, Mother, I think Lin Ro is unwilling. As long as Lin Ro lives, Han Zheng will never acknowledge me as his mother. A forced marriage doesn't bring happiness. Let's forget it, the mother-in-law said fiercely. Then kill this bitch. Get rid of the mother, keep the child. As long as this bitch is dead, Jung'er is still so young. He will forget his mother and recognize you as his mother. What? Han Jingyang and Lin Ro both exclaimed in shock. Lin Ro's body went limp, and she collapsed to the ground. Han Jingyang quickly said, No, Mother, if you want to kill her, you'll have to step over my dead body. I reproached, Husband. You have disappointed me so much. How can you disobey Mother again and again? The mother-in-law snorted coldly. Lin Ro finally understood the situation, frantically kowtowing on the ground. Madam, it's all my fault. I no longer wish to be the wife. I am willing to be a concubine. I am willing to be a concubine. With Han Jingyang pleading for me, my mother-in-law snorted coldly. She left with Han Yu, calling out to him as her darling all the way, not even glancing at Han Zheng. Seeing this scene, Han Jingyang and Lin Ro were stunned, perhaps unable to fathom it no matter how hard they tried. Why would my mother-in-law care so much for an adopted child while refusing to look at her own legitimate grandson? I sneered inwardly and turned away, ignoring the two of them. In this world, everyone has their own preferences and distances. My mother-in-law carried Han Yu for 10 months, and the older she gets, the more she dotes on her youngest son. Naturally, she treasures Han Yu deeply. How could a grandson she had never seen before compare to the son she raised herself? Still, a grandson is still a grandson. Not long after, Nanny Zhou came to deliver a message, asking me to see the old madam. I smiled and said, All right. In the pavilion, the old madam was feeding Han Yu pastries. Seeing me approach, she beamed and waved me over. Anning, come here quickly. Nanny Zhou took the child away to play, leaving just the two of us, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, in the pavilion. My mother-in-law held my hand and said, Anning, Jingyang has wronged you, but it's understandable. He had lost his memory back then, which is why he ended up with that woman. Rest assured, the only legitimate wife of the Marquis' heir is you. No one can take your position. I replied, Thank you, Mother. The old lady said many more comforting words, and I pretended to listen, while my mind wandered elsewhere. Why did Han Jingyang have to come back? If only he had truly died out there, how wonderful that would be. Now I have the final say in the Marquis' residence. Although my mother-in-law is domineering and overbearing, she has a weakness in my hands, so she is quite tolerant of me. And I've grown used to dealing with her, knowing how to stroke her fur. In a couple of years, when she kicks the bucket, I would be the rightful mistress of the Marquis' estate. But Han Jingyang returned, bringing along a mother and child, threatening my position. I could certainly take my gold and silver and leave. But in this world, a woman trying to establish her own household is an easy target. Without a strong backing, anyone can come and trample over her. I wanted to keep the Marquis household firmly in my grasp. After a moment of thought, I said, Mother, it's normal for men to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. I don't blame the heir. My mother-in-law's expression softened considerably. Just as I thought. You're magnanimous, I continued. Now that I have you heir, I have hope for the rest of my life, and I have you, Mother, to keep me company, whoever the heir favors. I don't care. However, I hope Lin Ro won't go after Yuer or threaten Yuer's position. My mother-in-law's face darkened. That goes without saying. She paused, stating the purpose of her visit. Anning, Han Zheng is after all Jingyang's biological son. It's not really appropriate for him to be treated as a concubine's son. I've decided to register Han Zheng under your name. How about it? I said, Mother. I have no objection, but I don't know if the heir and Lin Ro will agree. I knew that the grandson was also important in my mother-in-law's heart, and that she wanted to place Han Zheng under my name, all within my expectations. My mother-in-law snorted coldly. Whether they agree or not, they have to agree. Whether they agree or not, they must agree. I said, I understand, mother. After the discussion ended, I had just returned to my courtyard when I saw Han Jingyang and Lin Ro standing outside. Han Jingyang's face was livid with anger, while Lin Ro wore a look of grievance. Song Anning, you venomous woman, how dare you make us stay in such a dilapidated courtyard? Han Jingyang shouted furiously. I said, young master, why are you so angry? Han Jingyang replied, how did my Songjing courtyard become so run down? Can't you have someone tidy it up? I said calmly, young master, it was my oversight. I called out, someone? Chuju answered, yes, ma'am. I said, find a few people to clean up Songjing courtyard, so the young master can rest. Also, settle Lady Lin. Chuju glanced at Lin Ro and asked, which courtyard should Lady Lin stay in? Lin Ro interrupted, madam, I wish to be close to the young master. I nodded and said, very well. Then you will stay in Chuanha courtyard. The two finally left satisfied. Chuju clicked her tongue. Who does she think she is, daring to challenge Our Lady? Rest assured, madam, everyone knows what to do. I nodded and walked back into the inner courtyard. In a grand mansion, there are many ways to torment someone, making them swallow bitter pills in silence. Although Chuanha courtyard was close to Han Jingyang's residence, but it was dilapidated, with a leaky roof. Not only was the living space uncomfortable, but the maids and old servants were also outwardly compliant, but inwardly defiant, leaving Lin Ro so angry she couldn't speak. After just one night, Lin Ro couldn't stand it. I hadn't been too harsh on Han Jingyang's side. After all, there was still the mother-in-law watching from above. Soon, Lin Ro moved into Han Jingyang's courtyard, insisting on living together no matter what. I immediately went to inform my mother-in-law. Mother, that Lin Ro refuses to stay in her own courtyard and insists on moving into the heir's courtyard. The two of them are spending every day together. As I spoke, I glanced at Nurse Zhou. Nurse Zhou also said, old madam, that concubine Lin is too unruly. In which noble family does a concubine stay in the heir's room every day? If word gets out, the heir's reputation will be ruined. I sneered inwardly. What reputation did Han Jingyang have? He got injured as soon as he went on an expedition. Everyone thought he was dead, but he ended up hiding for over 3 years, and now he slunk back to the capital. If he had died, everyone would have revered him as a hero. Now that we're back, what will everyone think? The mother-in-law slammed the table in rage. This Lin Ro is truly outrageous. I stood up and said, Mother, Lin Ro is so unruly. She has corrupted the young master and also spoiled Han Zheng. Please quickly transfer Zhenger to my household as soon as possible. I will definitely treat him well. He is still young now. He can still be corrected. If he gets older, it will be impossible to straighten him out. Mother nodded. Indeed so. Nanny Zhou, go and call them here.
Yes.
Nanny Zhou took the order and left. Soon, Han Jingyang and Lin Ro arrived in the courtyard. Han Jingyang said, Mother, what did you call us for? Lin Ro had suffered a secret loss. Seeing me, she was furious but spoke in a coquettish tone. Could it be that sister heard that my husband dotes on me and specifically came to complain to the old lady? I turned to Chiu and said, slap her mouth. Chiu walked over, grabbed Lin Ro, and slapped her across the face. You, a concubine, dare to disrespect the lady? You deserve a beating. Lin Ro cried out in shock. Chiu slapped her again. Entering the room without greeting the matriarch and the lady, you even have the audacity to call the heir husband, without manners. You, a mere concubine, stay in the heir's courtyard every day, ruining his reputation. How utterly rude, Chuju said while slapping concubine Lin several times. Han Jingyang quickly pushed Chiu away and shouted, stop it. Then he pointed at me and cursed, Song Anning, don't go too far. I smiled and turned to ask my mother-in-law, Mother, do you think I've gone too far? My mother-in-law, who had long been fed up with Lin Ro, said, not at all. She deserved it. Han Jingyang was furious. Mother, I am your son. Why do you only listen to Song Anning? My mother-in-law said, "Over the years, Anning has managed the Marquis's mansion, attended to this old woman, and taken care of you, heir. What have you done? You defy me at every turn for that slut, and you still have the nerve to speak." Lin Ro cried out, "Matriarch, you misunderstand. The lady is bullying me. She arranged for me to stay in a rundown courtyard. That courtyard was simply unlivable, so I went to the heir's courtyard." Han Jingyang also said, "Yes, mother, it's all Song Anning's fault." Just then, the mother-in-law looked over. I said, "Mother, this is how it happened. At the time, I was arranging accommodations for concubine Lin. She said she wanted to be closer to the heir apparent, so I gave her the nearest Chuanha courtyard. It was indeed a bit rundown, but it was by no means uninhabitable. I was also arranging for repairs to the house. However, concubine Lin used this as an excuse to move into the heir's room." Han Jingyang said, "Mother, you heard that. That Chuanha courtyard is so dilapidated. How could Lin Ro possibly stay there? It's all Song Anning's fault." I looked at my mother-in-law and said, "Mother, did I do wrong? I am truly heartbroken now."
My gaze was very calm.
My mother-in-law sighed, stood up, walked over to Han Jingyang, and slapped him across the face. "You unfilial son." Smack. Han Jingyang covered his face.
Stunned.
"Mother, why did you hit me again?" My mother-in-law scolded, "Han Jingyang, how could I have given birth to such a stupid thing? Although Chuanha courtyard is dilapidated, it is by no means uninhabitable. You managed to survive in the bitter, cold borderlands. How is it that as soon as you return to the Marquis's manor, you can't even stay in a slightly shabby courtyard? What? Have you become delicate and pampered just by returning to the capital? It's clearly that bitch Lin Ro finding excuses to get close to you." Han Jingyang said, "Roer getting close to me is only right. What's wrong with that?" The mother-in-law was so angry, she slapped him again. Han Jingyang was stunned. I couldn't help but want to laugh. If the first slap was out of consideration for me, then this slap was the mother-in-law's true feelings. The mother-in-law scolded, "Han Jingyang, you are the heir of the Marquis Manor. She's just a lowly concubine. Which proper heir would let a concubine live in his courtyard every day? You went to the battlefield and went missing for 3 years. Now you've come back alive. How do you think those generals see you? How does His Majesty see you?" I said, "Heir, to put it bluntly, you are a deserter. If you make another misstep, I'm afraid even this noble title won't be kept." Han Jingyang's face changed. "Such a small matter. It can't be that serious, right?" The mother-in-law said, "It is." "Han Jingyang, you truly disappoint me." She was so furious her chest heaved up and down. After a moment, she took a deep breath and said, "All right, no more useless words. I called you here today to announce something. From now on, Han Zheng will be adopted under Anning's name, to be treated as the legitimate son of the Marquis's estate and raised by Anning." Lin Ro's face turned pale, and she fell to her knees with a thud, begging, "Old madam, you can't do this. Zheng has always been raised by me." The mother-in-law snorted coldly. "My mind is made.
Guards.
Drag this wretch who seduced the heir away and lock her in the woodshed, without my order. She is not to leave. No, please." 2 maids stepped forward and grabbed Lin Ro, dragging her away amidst her screams. Han Jingyang was about to chase after her when the mother-in-law sternly called him back. "Stop right there. You dare disobey me now." Han Jingyang said angrily, "Mother, you've gone too far." Then he walked out. The mother-in-law clutched her chest and sat back on the couch. "Unfilial son. Truly an unfilial son." I said softly, "Mother, please don't be angry. Although the heir has done many wrong things, he is, after all, the only one who can inherit the title. He is the hope of our Marquis's household. You should just bear with it." The mother-in-law's expression paused, then suddenly she showed a thoughtful look. After a moment, she gave a cold laugh. "Able to inherit the title? He wasn't the only one. If he continued to be disobedient and insisted on defying me, the position of heir wasn't set in stone." I curled my lips and took my leave. Lin Ro was locked in the woodshed. Han Jingyang made a huge fuss, but didn't forcibly take her away, which caught me off guard. I thought he would storm in angrily. Would he really go against his mother to protect his woman? In the end, he did nothing. What a coward. If he can't thoroughly enrage his mother, then the next steps of the plan won't go smoothly. It seems I need to add fuel to the fire. Han Zheng came to my courtyard. I had him and Han Yu spend time together. It seemed Lin Ro had said a lot of bad things about Han Yu, so Han Zheng never got along with him. He was also quite hostile toward me. I didn't care about his attitude. After having that dream, I sent people to the border to look for Han Jingyang, hoping to find him. That way, I could avoid the scenes from the dream. But after searching for a long time, we still couldn't find him. I always wondered, since I got together with Han Zheng, I kept trying to pry information out of him. Extracting various information from him, Han Zheng was just a child and couldn't keep secrets. I learned that the place where Han Jingyang and Lin Ro used to live was actually not within the pass. It was outside the pass. No wonder they could never be found. In that case, I could certainly make use of this. I sent a message by carrier pigeon to the men still searching at the border, ordering them to go to the place where Han Jingyang and Lin Ro had lived, with the main task of looking into Lin Ro's background. Soon the reply arrived. That day I was reading in the courtyard when a pigeon flew down from the sky and landed by my hand. I took the letter from its leg. I opened and read it, then raised an eyebrow. Next, I had someone deliberately leak information to Lin Ro in the woodshed, saying that I was abusing Han Zheng and that Han Yu bullied him daily. As expected, Lin Ro couldn't sit still. She tried various ways to send a message to Han Jingyang, asking him to rescue her. A maidservant secretly came to report to me. Madam, concubine Lin gave me a bracelet. She asked me to deliver a letter for her, requesting the heir to see me. I concentrated on trimming the flower branches without lifting my head. Go ahead. Yes. The maidservant withdrew. Soon there was a commotion in the Marquis's manor. A servant came to report. Madam, the heir suddenly rushed into the woodshed and carried out concubine Lin, saying she is very ill. He also called for a physician to treat her. I said, Qiuju, go and inform mother. Han Zheng and Han Yu were playing in the yard. Upon hearing the news, Han Zheng immediately ran out, saying, I want to see mother. I did not stop him. Then I said to the nanny, Nanny, take young Master Yu to Songjing Garden to see the heir and also look after young Master Zheng. Yes. The nanny took Han Yu and also went to Songjing Garden. I walked out of my courtyard and stood on the path waiting. After a while, my mother-in-law rushed over from not far away, her face full of anger. The order to confine Lin Ro had been given by my mother-in-law herself. Now Han Jingyang had actually disobeyed her and released Lin Ro on his own, which was undoubtedly a harsh slap in the face. Time and again, Han Jingyang defied her for Lin Ro's sake. My mother-in-law's patience had reached its limit. When I saw her, I quickly walked over. Greetings, mother, I said. Mother-in-law asked, Did Han Jingyang release Lin Ro? I nodded. She fumed. That unfilial son. Does he have any respect for me as his mother? I said, Mother, that Lin Ro is too formidable. You personally raised the heir for over a decade, yet she surpasses you after just 3 years by his side. Mother-in-law's gaze grew even more resentful. I added, Mother, has the heir ever told you where exactly he was during his 3-year disappearance? Mother-in-law paused, her eyes flickering. Why do you ask that? I could tell from her expression. Han Jingyang must have told her some important things under her interrogation. But it was only natural that mother-in-law didn't want to tell me. After all, Han Jingyang was her own son. I was just an outsider. Over these years of interaction, we had always been in a state of neither friend nor foe. I handed mother-in-law a piece of paper. Mother, there might be another reason Lin Ro is so formidable. Mother-in-law picked up the paper and glanced at it. Her face changed dramatically. What? Could Lin Ro be a spy? I nodded. I suppose the heir has told you some things as well. Mother, you can see what's written on the paper. Is it correct? The old madam quickly finished reading and said, Yes, he did tell me that he and Lin Ro lived outside the pass, but he said Lin Ro was from inside the pass. I shook my head. He lied. The prince might have only known she was from the Qing kingdom, not that she was a spy. Even that child Han Zheng might not be the prince's. The old madam was greatly shocked. What did you say? Mother, do you know how I found out Lin Ro's identity? The old madam frowned. Right? How did you? I said, some time ago, when the prince brought Lin Ro back, I had someone take her portrait to investigate her identity. Coincidentally, a merchant caravan from the Qing kingdom was passing through the capital. My people asked around and by chance there was someone who knew Lin Ro. He said she was his friend's lover. That person said, Lin Ro was already pregnant 3 years ago, but she suddenly left without saying goodbye, which deeply saddened his friend. Think about it. A woman who was pregnant suddenly fled to the border to rescue an enemy general. Even living with an enemy general for over 3 years, if that's not being a spy, then what is? I passed the information to my mother-in-law, blending truth with falsehood. The more she listened, the paler her face became. Half of this information was true, and half was false. It was true that Lin Ro had a lover, but the pregnancy was false. However, what did it matter? I said she was pregnant, so she was pregnant, unless someone could produce evidence of Lin Ro's innocence. But how could such a thing be proven? My mother-in-law gritted her teeth and said, "This still doesn't prove Lin Ro is a spy." I replied, "We can't definitively conclude she's a spy, but the fact that Lin Ro is from the Qing state is set in stone." Mother, setting aside other matters, if people find out that after the young master went missing on the battlefield, he went to the Qing state and married a Qing woman, having a child with her, and if someone with ill intentions learns of this, they might accuse us of colluding with the enemy. Think about the consequences. My mother-in-law's face changed drastically. Mother, whether Lin Ro is truly a spy, and whether Han Zheng is truly the young master's biological son, no longer matters. What matters is that others will definitely exploit Lin Ro and her son's identities. They are a hidden danger to our Marquis' household, a real and tangible liability. If Lin Ro were just an ordinary woman who became the heir's concubine, I wouldn't care about her jealousy and fussing because after the heir returns, taking a few more concubines and bearing some illegitimate sons would be proper. But once Lin Ro and her son are exposed, it will bring irreversible disaster to our Marquis' mansion. Mother, your daughter-in-law asks you to decide. The air was still, leaves twirling and falling. I understand. After a long while, mother-in-law took a breath. Let's go take a look first. My mother-in-law and I walked silently to Songjing Garden. Just as we entered, we heard Lin Ro weeping to Han Jingyang. Your Highness, you must stand up for me. It's bad enough that the lady torments me, but she even abuses Jing. At that moment, Han Yu's voice sounded, Father, Mother didn't abuse brother. She treats me and brother the same. Lin Ro suddenly became furious. And you little bastard, what are you doing here? Han Yu was startled and said quietly, Brother ran out. Mother was worried he would get lost, so she sent the nanny to bring me to find him. Lin Ro didn't believe him at all. Would she be so kind? Han Yu, you came running over because you wanted to bully Zheng'er, didn't you? I've been having someone feed her news about Han Yu bullying Han Zheng, and Lin Ro has kept it all in her heart. She was already wary of me and Han Yu. After hearing it, she didn't doubt it at all and hated Han Yu to death. Han Yu argued, I didn't bully him. Lin Ro said, You did. Don't think I don't know. You're just a bastard from outside. You're afraid Zheng'er will take away your position as the legitimate son, so you bully him in everything. Han Yu burst into tears. I didn't. Lin Ro was furious. You did. You little bastard. I'm telling you, don't even think about taking Zheng'er's position. The mother-in-law had reached the peak of anger. She pushed the door open with force. What are you doing? With a bang, the door opened. Lin Ro was tightly gripping Han Yu's arm, her face twisted, eyes wide open. This scene fell into the mother-in-law's eyes, extremely glaring. She rushed over. She slapped Lin Ro hard across the face.
Bitch.
The slap was extremely forceful. Lin Ro fell to the ground. Han Jingyang, who had been sitting by the table, quickly rushed over to help Lin Ro up. She demanded angrily, Mother, why do you always bully Ro? The mother-in-law was so furious she could spit blood. Pointing at Han Jingyang, she said, You unfilial wretch. Truly an unfilial wretch. She took a deep breath and said coldly, Guards, concubine Lin has violated proper conduct and harmed heirs. Execute her by cane immediately. Nanny Zhou led 2 matrons as they rushed in. They grabbed Lin Ro, one on each side. Lin Ro was horrified. Old madam, I am wronged. I didn't harm any heirs, I didn't. The mother-in-law glared fiercely. Staring at her viciously, she said, I saw with my own eyes you pinching your heir and heard with my own ears you calling him a bastard. Out of respect for Jingyang and Han Zheng, I was willing to spare your life. But you kept stirring up trouble, disobeying orders, ambitious, and trying to harm my Yue to make room for your son. You must not be kept alive. With each word she spoke, Lin Ro's face grew paler. The two matrons were already dragging her out. She cried out, "Jingyang, save me. Jingyang." Han Jingyang was about to rush forward, but I stretched out my leg to trip him. He didn't notice and tripped, falling flat on his face with a bang. I ordered, "Stop the young master." The maid swarmed and pinned Han Jingyang down, making him unable to move. At this moment, the mother-in-law was furious. Holding Han Yu, she snorted coldly, completely ignoring Han Jingyang, and walked out. Outside, the sound of bamboo slaps crackled, along with Lin Ro's wails. "Jingyang, save me. Save me."
Where?
Han Jingyang struggled to get out, but was pressed down tightly by the crowd. After all, he was a man. He had great strength, and several maids and matrons could barely hold him down. Seeing him about to break free, I grabbed the stool next to me and smashed it hard against his head. The first blow didn't knock him out. He turned his head and stared at me in shock, his eyes wide open. Perhaps he never expected me to hit him with a stool. I smiled at him. Then I smashed him again hard. This time, he finally passed out. Lin Ro's screams grew weaker and weaker until they faded away. I dropped the stool and clapped my hands. As I stepped out, I saw Han Zheng running over crying, throwing himself onto Lin Ro's body and calling out for his mother. My mother-in-law was still furious, staring at Han Zheng with an extremely cold gaze. "Zheng'er, your mother is Song Anning, not this bitch." Han Zheng cried out to her. "Lin Ro is my mother, Song Anning is not. Song Anning is a bitch."
Bitch. Bitch.
"I'll kill you. You killed my mother. I'll kill you." I walked over to him and slapped him across the face. Han Zheng was just a child. That slap sent him to the ground, wailing. I asked him, "Who taught you to call me a bitch?" He cried, "You are a bitch. My mother was father's rightful wife, but you stole my father and made my mother a concubine. You killed my mother and I will kill you too." I turned to my mother-in-law and said, "Mother, deal with this child too." She shuddered. "This," I said, "Mother, you need to think it over carefully. Today, in front of this child, you personally killed his mother. He will never forgive you for the rest of his life. Even if you raise him, you'll be raising an enemy." Mother-in-law fell silent. I continued, "Besides, it's uncertain whether he's truly your biological grandson. He is from Qing State." Mother-in-law's expression changed. I said finally, "If Han Zheng remains in the Marquis' mansion, Han Jingyang currently dislikes Han Yu and will inevitably favor this child in the future. Han Yu won't get a single thread or needle from the mansion. Mother, I'm being blunt. After you pass away, what will happen to Han Yu? Who will protect him? Han Jingyang doesn't like him at all, and Han Zheng sees him as an enemy. I know you can't bear to part with Han Zheng, but you should consider Han Yu more. Over there, Han Zheng is still shouting about killing us." Mother-in-law pursed her lips, and her eyes slowly turned cold. "Then send him away." Nanny Zhou stepped forward, picked up Han Zheng, nodded to mother-in-law, and walked outside the mansion despite Han Zheng's desperate struggles. The matter was settled. Wait until Han Jingyang regains consciousness from his coma. Everything had already settled down. He was lying on the bed. As his wife, it was my duty to serve him. I carried a bowl of medicine and sat down on the stool beside him. Ready to feed him, Han Jingyang knocked the bowl out of my hand and snarled at me, "Don't you come pretending to be kind. Where is Rower? Where is Rower?" I glanced at the shattered pieces on the floor, unfazed, and said calmly, "She's dead."
What? Dead?
Han Jingyang leaped off the bed in disbelief and grabbed me by the collar. His face twisted with rage. "You're lying. How could Rower die? You killed her, you bitch, you venomous woman." Unmoved, I replied, "Hereditary prince, don't forget. It was your own mother who ordered Rower beaten to death. Mother confined her, but she couldn't stay put, and she coaxed you into rescuing her. And for her sake, you defied Mother's orders," I said. "You released her, and of course Mother was furious. What's more, Rower went so far as to bully Han Yu. Han Yu is Mother's very lifeblood, and you just stood by and watched. You didn't even stop her. Mother naturally wanted to kill her." Han Jingyang's face flushed red. Mother, why can't you tolerate Rower? Why?" I pushed him away. I gently adjusted my collar. "Come to think of it, you're also an accomplice in Lin Ro's death." Han Jingyang stared at me in disbelief. "What did you say?" I said, "Isn't it true? She didn't have to die. It was you who repeatedly indulged her as she trampled over me, you who defied mother time and again for her sake, you who condoned her wickedness, and you who personally let her out, which completely enraged mother. It was you who saw her bullying you heir and did nothing, which made mother determined to kill her. You caused her death. Han Jingyang, you're the real culprit. With each word I spoke, Han Jingyang's face turned paler by the moment. He shook his head, as if struck by a huge blow. How could this be? No, it's not like that. It's not. I sneered. Han Jingyang, you are truly a coward. You dare to act but not to take responsibility. Lin Ro was killed by you. Han Jingyang roared. It wasn't me. It was mother. Mother killed her. I said, right, it was mother who killed her. But what can you do? You're a coward. With a puff, Han Jingyang spat out a mouthful of blood. I snorted lightly and flicked my sleeves before leaving. Not long after I left. According to Chiu Ju's report, Han Jingyang lost control of his emotions and stormed into the mother-in-law's courtyard, causing a huge commotion. The mother-in-law is strong-willed and naturally believed she was not at fault. Two people who both think they're right argued with each other. Naturally, the argument grew heated. In a moment of urgency, Han Jingyang accidentally pushed the mother-in-law, and she rolled down the steps. Her health was already poor, so she ended up with a fracture. The mother-in-law became bedridden. As a filial daughter-in-law, I naturally attended to her bedside. The mother-in-law wept bitterly. What sin have I committed to raise such an unfilial son? The mother-in-law was in pain from the fracture, but Han Jingyang believed she had killed Lin Ro, harboring resentment. He didn't even want to come see her. The mother-in-law's heart grew colder. If she only had Han Jingyang as a son, no matter how much Han Jingyang made a scene, she would have to endure and tolerate it. But now she has Han Yu, giving her more options. Han Jingyang knew that the mother-in-law had sent Han Zheng away. Flying into a rage, he came to the courtyard to scold his mother-in-law again. So furious, she spat blood. Just as she was about to speak, Han Jingyang didn't even listen and left. He went to look for Han Zheng but never found him. All the manpower of the Marquis's residence was in my hands. He couldn't mobilize anyone. The money was also with me, so he couldn't take any to hire people to search. I openly refused him, and he couldn't go to his mother to make the decision. After all, he had caused his mother to break a bone, and she was still furious. Even if I disgusted him, he had no recourse. Han Jingyang wandered aimlessly through the vast sea of people alone. In the end, he found nothing and had to slink back to the Marquis's residence. After returning, he drowned his sorrows in drink every day, getting thoroughly drunk. To be honest, his demeanor surprised me a bit. There was still some genuine feeling in it. No wonder he was willing to demote his wife to a concubine for Lin Ro. But if he wanted to play the devoted lover, he should sacrifice himself. I would have believed his deep affection if he sacrificed himself, but sacrificing me to fulfill his and her feelings, what's that about? When Lin Ro is truly bullied, he can't protect her. When there's a family conflict, he was powerless to mediate, letting the conflicts pile up more and more. Such a man, incompetent and selfish. I stopped bothering with him. In the end, mother-in-law still acknowledged the son and sent Aunt Zhou to persuade him. They told him that Lin Ro was a spy from Qing State. Now, regardless of whether she truly was a spy or not, they had to make it the truth. They also said that Han Zheng was not his biological son, and once that identity was exposed, people with ulterior motives would exploit it. However, Han Jingyang was not listening to her at all. He regarded mother-in-law as an enemy, gnashing his teeth in hatred. Mother-in-law was deeply saddened. Her heart grew colder. Now everything and everyone in the Marquis Manor was under my control. Han Jingyang had completely fallen apart, trapped in his own world. It was far too easy to pull some strings. On top of that, mother-in-law was bedridden with a broken bone, having the will but no strength. So, I had someone secretly slip something into Han Jingyang's wine. A few days later, Han Jingyang suddenly fell ill. When mother-in-law found out, suppressing her anger over Han Jingyang causing her bone fracture, she endured her illness and went to see Han Jingyang on crutches. However, the moment Han Jingyang saw her, he became emotionally agitated, shouting and cursing, which enraged the matriarch so much that she vomited blood. She no longer cared about Han Jingyang, and mother and son became complete enemies. At this time, Rumors gradually spread in the capital that Han Jingyang was a deserter, and someone even presented a memorial to His Majesty, proposing to strip the marquisate from the mansion. When the news reached the mansion, the matriarch was silent for a long time. I said, "Mother, the heir has been ruined. He is unfilial and disloyal. Now he sees us as enemies. If any more mishaps occur, we will all be finished. Even if you don't consider us, you must think of heir." The matriarch said, "What do you propose?" I sighed. If only the heir had never returned. Everything was fine before. His return has only put the mansion in an awkward position. The matriarch continued. I said, "If he had been seriously wounded on the battlefield and could not be cured after 3 years of treatment, then everyone would believe that he was indeed critically injured and died, rather than being a deserter." The matriarch's gaze gradually turned cold. Then send him on his way. Once he was dead, no one would say anything. I curled my lips in satisfaction.
Good.
On a cold night, Han Jingyang drank the poisoned wine sent by his mother-in-law and died silently. The mother-in-law stood outside the house, silently weeping. She was ultimately too soft-hearted, not giving him the poison that would rot his intestines, allowing him to die without pain, at least fulfilling their bond as mother and son. I watched the whole thing coldly, without any emotional fluctuation. Han Jingyang regarded me as his enemy. Once he crawled out of his grief, he would surely come after me. As the heir and a robust man, it would be easy for him to kill me, just as easy as in my dream. So, naturally, I had to strike while he was down and not give him a chance to recover and fight back. I had no maternal family to fall back on, so I had to be ruthless. After burying Han Jingyang, his mother, despite her illness, begged the emperor to pass the title of heir to Hanyu. The mother-in-law had always been in frail health. This series of events ultimately dealt her a heavy blow. Coupled with a previous fracture, she fell gravely ill within a few months. On her deathbed, she tightly grasped my hand. "Anning, I know you've had a hand in many things." I turned a blind eye and let them be. I pressed my lips together and said nothing. Mother-in-law caught her breath and continued. "Now, all those who deserve to die are gone. Let it go as well." I nodded slightly. "All right." Mother-in-law said sorrowfully, "What I can't let go of most is heir. He's still so young." I said softly, "Mother, rest assured. I raised heir with my own hands. As long as he never learns the truth, I will treat him well." Mother-in-law coughed once and said, "Rest assured. I have never told him that I am his mother. He will never know the truth. For him, not knowing the truth is for the best. You will always be his mother." Watching her breath fade, my feelings were complicated. After the old marquis passed away, mother-in-law raised Han Jingyang single-handedly, upholding the honor of the marquis's household. Though selfish and domineering, she was still a remarkable woman. I grasped her withered hand and said solemnly, "Rest assured. I swear I will always treat heir well and never wrong him." Mother-in-law caught her breath, nodded with relief, and then said, "From now on, don't spoil him." I was too indulgent with Jingyang, which made him lose his wits. Heir, if he needs a beating, beat him. If he needs a scolding, scold him. If he needs training, train him. Don't be soft-hearted. I nodded. "Mother, let heir have a word with you." I stood up and opened the door, letting Hanyu in. Hanyu asked blankly, "Mother, how is grandmother?" I crouched down and pointed at my head, whispering, "Your grandmother misses your father terribly. Her mind is a bit foggy now. Heir, can you pretend to be your father and call her mother to make her feel a little better?"
Han nodded.
"Okay." The little boy walked to the bedside, facing the withered old woman on the bed, and said, "Mother." The old woman's eyes snapped open, and she struggled violently. I leaned in and whispered, "I tricked him." I explained everything. The old woman relaxed, tears streaming down her face. After a moment, she managed to wave Hanyu over. "Son, come to your mother." Hanyu approached and called out "Mother" again. The old woman, crying, replied, "Oh." I quietly slipped away. I exited the room and gently closed the door, leaving the final moments to mother and son. Outside, a light breeze rustled the green bamboo, making a soft rustling sound. I reached out my hand, and a leaf fell into my palm. It drifted away with the wind. I withdrew my hand and sighed softly. Everything was finally over. From today on, I would be the master of the Marquis's mansion.